Hello friends, let's continue learning and exploring Ansible with Dev Linux. See, so far whatever Ansible tasks we have done, we have used the root user and practically speaking in real projects, organizations, you don't use the root user account directly, usually and ideally also. You create one generic account and then use it for deployment purposes. It could be the same name as Ansible or Ansible Provision or something else. So what we want to do here is actually we want to create one user account that we will use for Ansible stuffs only. Let's give that user the same name, Ansible. So we will log in as Ansible whenever we want to run Ansible commands or Ansible playbooks. And we will give root privileges to this user account called Ansible. And of course, we need to generate SSH keys also and share those public keys only with for the same user account on a remote host. So these three steps are very important before we set up a user account that can work, that can act uh, for the Ansible deployment, right? Now, let's use Ansible ad hoc command here on the Ansible server, and we are still the root user, super user. I'm asking it to create the user on my localhost as well as my web servers and Docker servers. Okay, there can be one server, there can be 10 servers for each group, web and Docker. Now, the module we want to use here is user. I'm not creating a playbook because for one task we don't need to create a playbook unless we want to do it over and again. And additional parameters or arguments that we want to pass is name. What is the name of the user we want? For example, Ansible. And anything else, for example, group membership, we can specify because we said that we want will group also. So let's use group will. Another thing we need is let's say keys, right? So we need to generate keys and we'll share them manually later on. So generate SSH key equal yes. Okay, let's do that first. Okay, nice to see output. For example, for my web server, you see this user account has been created. Here is the home directory, the default shell, etc. Now, another thing is the ssh.ssh directory has been created and public and private keys have been stored there. For the private key file, the data have not been showed here, and public is visible here. Now, same for the Docker host and for the local host also. Very nice. Now, we need to share this public key on remote hosts. Right, on remote hosts also we created the account and what file it is authorized underscore keys, correct? So we can just copy this thing from this localhost because on this localhost only we have the Ansible setup, Ansible install on it. So this is our master server or control server Ansible as you can see here, and I have given it hostname as Ansible. So this key we can copy paste or we can use the um, SSH copy ID command also. So let's do that now. We can log in as before login. One more thing is required. We need to set password. So password we can set some random password or a specific password on all the hosts. And if I'm not setting a password for other host, that is also fine. So, but on this host we need it. So pass wd ansible. Of course, with the user module which we just used, we can also specify an encrypted password. Okay, this is done. So when root does that switch user thing, root user is not required to enter a password, but SSH copy ID we can use. Sorry, I did not specify Ansible. SSH copy ID we can use, and we need to specify the other two hosts where we want to copy these IDs. Let's take one example at a time. Now, if I say yes, but on the other host, my login is not yet valid because I'll be asked for the password. So what I do on the other two hosts also, I set up a password for this user. Pass wd for Ansible. Of course, as I told you that we could just use the same user module to set a password. Since we did not, so now I have to do it manually. We have just two hosts, so no worries, but when we have multiple hosts, then we should be doing through automation only. So it says that the work is successful and we can try. So SSH to this host. Successful login to web server. Now the other host 205 not correct, or 105. What is the IP? 105. We are able to do SSH, but we were asked for password. So let's copy the ID there, 105. Done. Now let's do it again. And this time we should not be asked for the password. So done. Okay. So on both the hosts, on the Docker host as well as on the web server, we have set up the account Ansible, the Ansible user account, and shared the SSH keys there. And we need to verify one thing, that will membership is present or not. So the supplementary group is will, and it is there. So we should be fine now. Now another thing is we can change it, check it for all the hosts. So this time, instead of using this module, we can use the default command module and say groups for this user Ansible on all the three hosts, the local as well as the other remote hosts. Okay, so will group is present here also and on the other two servers also. Very nice. So these prerequisites are met. Now we can remove them from our list. So the next thing is now we want to check that can we use this Ansible user account now to run ad hoc commands or perform any other activities, right? Run playbooks. So let's try to do one simple thing. First, we use this ad hoc command Ansible and we ask it to perform only on the web server. And what we want to check it, we check the same thing. For example, ID of demo user. And this is a non-privileged task. We don't need any root access for that, right? So this works fine. So this user is able to run command on the remote host, okay, through Ansible. Now we do something different here. We use the module user and we ask it to create one user account, another user account, which is let's give it some name test, for example, and let's see if that works fine. See, we are asking uh, what we are asking for a new user account, right? And currently this user Ansible is going to fire this task through. Let's say what happens. This should not work, and I will tell you why. See, we got a failure there. Why? Permission denied. Why denied? Let's see. The thing is, very important thing is that this task, creating a user, is similar to running this command user at, right? Here also, if this user we want to create with the Ansible, through this Ansible only, this user Ansible is trying to create this user, permission denied. So what we do? You remember we use this sudo thing, right? Similarly, let's do that first. Now it is successful, correct? So when we are performing this task on the remote servers, we did not specify that I want to use the sudo thing. So we use -b to say become, means use sudo privileges. Become by default become what or who. So you say become the super user, the root user, unless I want to specify some other user. So that's okay now. And I hit enter. Let's see if this time we get it through. Again, it is asking us what is not asking, it is telling us that missing sudo password, correct? So we just executed this command and we were prompted for the sudo password. Similarly, here also we need to specify password. So if you say K, that means my user account password, not sudo password. So hyphen K means become password, that's sudo password, right? Now hit enter. Now become password. So I enter the become password. That means the same password which you would enter for sudo, sudo whatever we do with the sudo thing. Now this is a successful operation. We can confirm without being the root user. We can check if this is percent ID test, and we don't need this user module there. Okay, this task is done. So whenever we are performing something that requires sudo privileges, we have to say become hyphen b. And if you want to become somebody else other than the root user, then you can specify become user. And you would be doing that usually in your playbooks. Now, how I say become user? If I don't say anything, then default is root. So become user root. Now, if I hit the enter key, I'm asked for the password. Of course, that user is already present, so it is not going to create it again, and it is not an error also. So become user, you can specify like this. If you want to become somebody else, such as Oracle user, for example, Nagios user, you use that username here. And hyphen B means become. I want to become somebody else. That is what I'm telling here. And I don't need this part if I say hyphen B, as long as I mean the root user. Now this thing is clear, correct? So we can do the same thing in a playbook. Name. Let us create one user account such as test user on all the servers. Create test user account. Now hosts. So hosts, web and Docker, and what tasks we want to perform. Before that, we can specify become true. Become user. We don't have to say specific become underscore user. So we don't have to say default is root. Now tasks. So what task it is? Create the user and its home directory along with SSH keys. Now the module is user. Username is test, and we want to generate 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 SSH key true. Now anything else, let's keep it short. Once this is done, then we will verify separately. Greater than create user dot yml. Now let's run this task. Before this playbook, before that we must check the syntax. Oh, some error is there. No wonder. Hosts become true, become user task. After task, we forgot this colon thing. right? That is why I prefer to perform this check. Again, some problem. Yes, some problem is there because when we were doing this activity, we did say name. This time we forgot. One more error and really I am going to log off. See, done. Now Ansible dash playbook, create user and become we already mentioned. Become what? We already mentioned date also. So hyphen capital K we will use here to provide the sudo password. That's it. Complete it. Now let's see here. Play create test user account. Okay, that is the play name. Then gathering facts, that is the default task. It went successful for both these hosts and for one of the hosts, Docker hosts. Okay, because we were logging in first time probably. Authentication of authenticity cannot be established. Okay, some keys got changed. So non-host file was updated again. Now, are you sure you want to continue? So yes, we provided and this thing went fine. User created on both the hosts. On both the hosts 24 and 101. Right? So we did not create it on the other host or not. Yes. Let's see the history. We created on the web server earlier. So for web server, we should not be getting changed output. We deleted it later. I don't remember. No, no, no. So what has changed? What has changed? One thing has changed. I'll tell you what. Generate SSH key. The test user was present on the web server because we executed that ad hoc command, but we did not create the SSH keys that time. Correct? As we can check the command here, which we executed earlier. We only created the user. So that is why we see changed for this host also. That is why I was wondering that why we got a changed there. So this thing changed the keys. So our task is successful now and we have verified. We can once again verify by running a simple command here. That simple command can be an ad hoc command. The ad hoc command here is let's check this user on all the hosts. Oh, only on the web host it is checking. I have to change it. Docker. And one more thing, you see output server and then response and then the output from the command. So what we do here, use hyphen O to say one line. So it will give you one liner kind of thing. You see, one liner we got now, and it is better for reporting purpose also. So this user is present on both the host along with the SSH keys. So this is how we set up a user account that we can use for the Ansible deployment purposes. And you don't have to use the become thing every time. You use it whenever you need it. In fact, inside play also, unless you don't have to say it here only, you can specify here also. I'll show you one more example. These two lines I remove from there and I put them in here, that for this task only you become the user root. Okay, and perform this task. Before that task, what I want is, now this time I want to delete this user. So name is this, and remove home directories true, and state is absent. By default, present is the default value, so we did not specify earlier. Now before this task, we want to run this task, which does not require any sudo privileges. What task it is? Check uptime of the remote hosts. And we want to use the command module uptime. We want to register the output. So let's give it some name, output for example. Then another task we run here, name, show the output. We use the module debug, and then we say whatever message we have, result, and then this thing, output dot std out. Okay. So for these two tasks, we don't need sudo privileges. So we did not specify become and become what at the host level, at the play level, I would say. Before running it, Ansible dash playbook hyphen hyphen syntax check, no error, good. So this playbook we run again, become password, create the user account, that is the play name, gathering facts, okay, default task, okay, let it finish, then we go up. Now here we got two okay for both the hosts. Check uptime of the host. See, changed, something was done, and what was done, we see the result here from both the hosts. So we didn't need the sudo privileges. Create the user, of course, we forgot to change that line. We were deleting it actually. So Deletion was successfully done. So nothing failed, nothing unreachable, nothing skipped or rescued, ignored, etc. Everything looks good. Now with that id command we can check if we still have the test user, no such user, something like that we should see in the result. So you see non-zero return value. So the account is not present, no such user on both the hosts. So our task is successful. If we didn't specify become or become user, so you know that we would face troubles, right? Can we try that again? Let's do that again. Vim create user. Let us just comment out these two lines. And this time, instead of absent, we say present. For the first two tasks, we don't need the sudo privileges, as you know, and for the gathering facts as well. For this exercise, successful. Now here we should face some trouble. See the trouble, you know. So permission denied. So this user is not having permission to run this user at command there. Need sudo privileges. So now everything looks clear here. I think we have seen several examples and we are good to say tata to each other. Bye bye.